A Gayageum master with a Harvard degree, Jocelyn Clark. After starting the violin at the age of 3, she went on to learn to study the oboe, clarinet, koto, guzheng, and Gayageum. But it was the Gayageum that mesmerized her most. To study the Korean traditional instrument, she came to Korea 25 years ago and became the first foreigner to hold a long sanjo Gayageum performance. She has been broadening her musical horizons by studying traditional Gayageum pieces as well as contemporary music. Today on Heart to Heart, Gayageum player and professor Jocelyn Clark, who fell in love with Korean traditional music. Joining us on Heart to Heart today is Professor Jocelyn Clark, who has dedicated 25 years to playing the Korean traditional instrument, Gayageum. Thank you so much for joining us and for the beautiful performance.
My teacher's going to get mad at me again.
Could you please say hello to our viewers that are watching?
Hello, I'm Jocelyn Clark. I'm from Alaska, and I've been in Korea off and on since 1992. I came here originally on a scholarship from the 군육국악관, the National Kugak Center, which is across the street from this station. The station didn't exist at that time. And since then, I've been studying Gayageum and doing other things. Currently, I'm a professor at Peje University, and I'm also playing music on the side.
Okay. Thank you once again for making time to come to our show. Join us on Heart to Heart today.
Thank you.
Shall we begin by talking about the Gayageum? Tell us what the Gayageum is, and for how long have you been playing the instrument?
Gayageum is a 12-string, usually we call in English a zither. And basically it's a board, a curved board. Maybe it was at one time made out of bamboo in ancient history times. And it has bridges, and each of the bridges is movable. You can move the bridges for tuning. And we can play with the right hand, with our fingers, we pluck the strings and flick the strings. And with the left hand, we can manipulate the sound. So how does the sound, after you pluck it, decay? You want to add vibrato, you want to make it go higher, you want to make it go lower. You can find these kind of zithers all over East Asia. We have them in Japan, in China, Taiwan, Mongolia, Vietnam. Thailand has something related to the komungo, a different instrument, but these kind of instruments you can find all over East Asia, and usually we compare them to a harp. But what's different than a harp is that with a harp you can't really play vibrato. It's like a piano. You have straight strings that can change tunings and that kind of thing, but you can't manipulate the strings, and that's what I really like about the Gayageum. Especially, we're still using silk strings. The Japanese instrument uses tetron, and the Chinese one uses steel. So this is the only instrument where we're really still using predominantly silk, and that means you can bend the strings quite a lot and get different kinds of sounds and effects.
Yes. Now, you have been playing the Gayageum for a very long time. For how long have you been playing the instrument?
I think it's 25 years now.
25 years,
25 years.
You did mention that the Korean Gayageum has silk strings, but of course, when you practice, I'm sure that your fingertips do bleed and you get calluses.
In the beginning, they bleed, and if you don't practice, then the bleeding comes back. So you have to practice all the time. And plus, I like to perform, so I always have to be ready for the stage. And in the meantime, long-term goal is to really put together this long sanjo. If you look at the other instruments which developed their sanjo after the Gayageum sanjo, it's the first sanjo. Sanjo is a kind of virtuosic instrumental piece, sort of the height of Korean traditional, performer ability. It's a show-off kind of piece. So the longest Gayageum sanjo is what I'm learning right now, and it's about 74 minutes long. It's quite long. It's 74 minutes without any rest. And you have to memorize the whole thing and eventually you should be able to improvise, but I'm still in the just memorizing stage. And it takes a long time, and I'm not young anymore, so it used to be faster to memorize things, and now it takes a little bit longer, more practice for it to stick in my head.
Yeah, memorizing for me is difficult too. Tend to forget things all the time. Now, since you mentioned about performing, now in 2011 you drew the spotlight for becoming the first foreigner to perform. Back then it was a 45-minute Gayageum Sanjo
Right, it's the same Sanjo, so it's about half the length almost. So I still had to have to, that was kind of a beginning performance for me. And of course I did my best. I played all the notes, but for me it was really actually quite a difficult time because my teacher was getting frustrated, and but I did it. This was to the Akdang Iban company, and they supported it and encouraged me to actually go that far. And so, well, in a way, it was like trying to get there, like a thesis or something like that. Sort of writing the book from that thesis is what I'm doing now, is sort of taking that as a starting point and moving on from there.
Wow.
조세린 교수님은 꽤 바쁜 사람 중 한 사람이죠. 학생을 가리키는 교수로서, 그리고 가야금을 연주하는 연주자로서, 또 가야금과 가야금 병창을 배우는 학생으로서요. 그리고 음악 공연 기획자로서도 있고 여러 가지 일들을 많이 하시죠.
I love Korea and I love Korean music, and I'm composing for Korean instruments also, in combination with Western instruments, of course, or also solo. And I am dealing with gugak forms. But how did all that happen? Why is that? The reason is very simple. It has two words: Jocelyn Clark. Jocelyn is a long-term, very good friend of mine, and she brought me in contact for the first time with the Gayageum.
So, taking us back to 2005 at Harvard University, you wrote your dissertation on Gayageum Pyeongchang.
Yes.
Yes.
That
So
was a
please tell
struggle.
us about what exactly is Gayageum Pyeongchang, and did you have to, or did you actually travel a lot between Korea and the U.S. to do research to write your dissertation?
Gayageum Pyeongchang is, most people think Pyeongchang means that lots of people play together, because Pyeong means like with, or to play with, to accompany. But it doesn't mean that you play with a lot of people. It means you accompany yourself on the Gayageum. So Pyeongchang, Chang is, of course, in Korean and in Chinese it just means to sing, but in Korea, Chang is really related to Chola province style singing, so pansori style singing. But it's not quite pansori style singing, because we think that Gayageum Pyeongchang originated in Chungcheongdo. So Chungcheongdo is between Jeollado and Gyeonggi-do. And so the style of singing is a little bit lighter than actual full pansori. Instead, it's, we have an instrumental accompaniment, so it's a little bit lighter, but the words are the same, using the words and the melodies as well. I studied, when I first arrived, Park Gi-hee 선생님 was still alive, and I went to a performance of Park Gi-hee as the main teacher, and then An Suk-sun and Kang Jung-suk 선생님. I went to the performance and I was really, I was very attracted. These are charismatic performers. So, and I was at 국악관 anyway. Kang Jung-suk 선생님 was at 국악관 then. So I went and asked her and asked the 국악관 if I could get a scholarship to study. So, and as I went on, I spent a long time learning saranga. It wasn't my first song, but it was my first pansori song. I wanted to perform it in the States. And in order to do that, I needed to translate it. And I thought that would be easy, just a matter of translating, just for program notes. But it turned out to be a really difficult prospect because all the song lyrics are transmitted in Hangul, first of all. So you have to go out and find the hancha. And at Harvard, we have a lot of changbon from different teachers and different scores. So I could look for things, but the order of the pyeongchang is different than the pansori. So finding the words was difficult. And then I found in this singer uses this hancha, that singer uses this hancha, so you don't know which one to use when you're translating. Then we find out that they made up their own grammar. So if you look up, you find the Chinese, and then you see it should end with like ye in Chinese, ya in Korean. But the singers who are not educated in like Yangban literature just hear the characters. They don't look at them, so they mistake it or not mistake it. They think they hear it as another character, and they create a new grammar. So then what are you supposed to do? Should you translate what the original was coming from the Chinese poetry? Or should you translate what they're actually singing? And if you translate what they are actually singing, whose book are you going to use? Who's the correct? Someone uses this one, someone uses that for the same sound but different characters. So then you have to decide. So that's how I got hooked on my dissertation, because I thought, oh my gosh, all the songs are like this. So I spent a lot of time translating classical Chinese poems that weren't yet translated into English because they're considered bad poets.
Wow. That must have been very difficult for you.
Well, it was one page one day, and I wrote like 500 pages, so it took forever.
Were there any moments of like wanting to just quit? Say, okay, this is more than I could take.
No, but I wanted to get through it. So and when I was done, I just let it sit there. And last year I was invited to give a talk in the literature department at Korea-대학교. So for that, it was on oral literature. They wanted me to talk on oral literature. So I revisited my dissertation, and I thought, it wasn't so bad. I could actually, and I ended up calling my dissertation from the part where the tebi, the swallow, tebi is swallow or sparrow?
Yes,
swallow, right?
Sparrow?
Swallow. I think it's swallow. Starts with an S. So tebi no dongi, that's the flight of this, the travel log of the sparrow. And when the sparrow speaks to Hongbu, he has a G in between each word. So like 조지, 세지, 린지, if you say my name, that sounds like a sparrow, right? So there's a part where the sparrow is reciting the Rono, the Analects of Confucius, in the song of the sparrow. So 지지지지주지주지 거지윤지윤지 빼어낙지 지지지지지 sounds like a sparrow. So I named my dissertation 지지지지주지주지, and then I named it 세린, 세린 no dongi. It's kind of a silly name.
Very unique, very unique.
심창이를 쫓구나 어유와 방아요
move on to how, of course, you have played, once again, the Chinese, the Japanese, and now, of course, the Korean traditional instrument, Gayageum. So there's, how did you first come to learn to play the Gayageum?
Gayageum I came to because when I returned from China, there was a big scholarship back when IBM was a big computer company. It's called the Watson Fellowship, and it's for graduating college seniors. So I competed for that all year, and I didn't get it. I was like runner-up. They asked me how many kanji I could read to go to Korea. I said, that doesn't make any sense. They said, see you. But I'd already set it up with the 국악원 to come. And the reason why I wanted to come was mostly because I was interested in ethnomusicology as a topic, and I was thinking about grad school in ethnomusicology, and I was very interested in comparing Japanese, Chinese, Korean, zither traditions. So mostly I just came for the shape of the instrument to be able to compare it with the koto and the jung. And at first, I found it very difficult because aesthetically it's quite a different instrument. It's, we stop each string before we play the next one. There's no ringing out. There's no flowing water and lofty mountains. It's really, the music is abstract. The meter, of course, is triple meter, and it's different than you're used to if you come from a background of Western music. And both Japanese and Chinese music have double meter. Everything's in 2 and 4. And in Korean music, everything's in 3. In the context of the West, that only happens in the waltz, right? So it's a little bit, we don't use it that much as a meter. But here, everything's in 3. So it was, learning how to feel this. That everything's divided into 3. Even like one beat still has 3 inside of it. So everything has 3, 3, 3, which is different than what I was used to. The sound of the instrument was different. The lack of picks, it didn't have a bright sound. It had this sort of darker sound. Trying to wrap my head around why is that beautiful? It took me some time to sort of be able to hear Korean music. And once I did, then I sort of, wanted to get better, and it became much more interesting. But it took some effort on my part to listen to it.
How long did it actually take?
It took me a year. I mean, I really, when I first arrived, I entered the music program at Seoul National University, and I was taking lessons at the 국악원. And I just, at first, and I was having trouble because, I didn't have a place to live. I needed help. I was quite arrogant when I came here. I thought, well, I've been to China, I've been to Japan. It's going to be no problem in Korea. And Korea is really a different place. It's not the same place. And of course, at that time, there was no internet. There was no computers. There was no 휴대폰. There was still no beep-beep. Everything was cell phones. Beepers, right? So it was all before any of those things. And nothing was set up really to receive foreigners outside of a real school program or something like that. So as an independent person, I ran into a lot of difficulties, and it was a rough year, but it was also a very fulfilling year. And look, I'm still here.
I'm wondering if having known to play these other Asian instruments, did that actually help you learn how to play the Gayageum, or was it more confusing? I'm just curious, because I would think that if you know how to play a certain instrument, and if you start to play a very similar type of instrument, it would be very confusing, even more difficult to actually start
So there
learning.
were some things that were helpful and some things that were unhelpful. And the main thing that was unhelpful is the part that gets into your muscles. You get muscle memory, especially vibrato technique. So the Chinese vibrato technique is from the wrist. It's very light and very fast. Koreans hate the sound. It's anti-Korean. If I had my Gayageum, I could play it for you. In Korean vibrato is, the whole weight of your body sort of goes into it, and it's sort of wide and deep vibrato. Chinese is fast and shallow, and this was very hard for me to change. And now that I have it, more or less have it in Korea, I'm still working on it, I cannot go back between the Chinese instrument and the Korean instrument. Japanese koto has a very different vibrato technique, so that doesn't get in the way at all. It's okay to go back and forth between the two. The space between the strings on the Chinese instrument and the Korean sanjo Gayageum are the same, so that's easy in some way. But the right hand playing technique is so different on those three instruments that it doesn't get in the way. What helped was, being used to pressing strings up and down and gauging that based on the tension of the string. You can sort of feel if it's going to go up a half note or going to go up a whole note or how far it's going to go up just through experience. And that was helpful. The space between the koto strings and the 정악 가야금, the court 가야금, are actually the same as well. And the playing technique of the court 가야금 is very similar to koto and also Shandong style jung. So I have all these sort of theses that of course, I'm probably impossible to prove, but that there's a relationship between the.
Of course, each instrument, the Chinese, the Japanese, and the Korean, they all have their charms. What would you say is most charming about the Korean Gayageum?
Korean gayageum, I mean, what I love, it's not the gayageum itself so much, is that the Korean 소리, this Korean music itself, especially from, I'm mostly studying the southern style, provincial style. It's very powerful and very moving emotionally, this kind of music. So with the gayageum, I'm still learning how to, find the way to play it to elicit that kind of emotion from other people, from audience members. What's very different about gayageum, though, is that we're stopping each string before we play. We stop it vibrating as we play the next string. So koto and jung are always ringing out, and you have this sort of, beautiful harmonic kind of things you can hear. We don't have this with gayageum. We're just playing one string at a time. So it's almost like you're singing through your instrument. So it's singing a song. Instead of words, you're manipulating the string to go just like the voice. And that's really, I like that about it because it's very, it comes right into you in some way, into your heart.
Last but not least, here is our last question. I'd like to know about your plans. What kinds of plans do you have for the near future? Plans, goals?
I stopped planning a while ago.
Too busy for plans?
No, it's not that. It was just that, eventually it doesn't matter if you make plans or not. It doesn't matter if you're around or not. People don't miss you when you're gone. So I've kind of been going with the flow in a way because I'm doing what I want to be doing. And, in the end, it comes down to life, right? What's the meaning of life? Or, how are you going to live your life? And if you try to be famous and write this and write that and try to be at the top of your profession, it's good. But if you miss life along the way, it's not that interesting. So mostly I'm trying to get better at everything that I'm doing and be disciplined and do my work. And right now, as I said, I'm trying to put together the whole Sanjo 74 minutes. But this is not something that happens in a week or 2 weeks. This is, it's a years-long project that I'm still going to take some more time. I want to make a recording just for myself because nobody doesn't really need to listen to my sanjo. But still, it's something that in a way promotes Korean music to Koreans as a way to say thank you to everybody who participated in teaching it to me. I want to write some books and I need to write some books to keep my job. So write some books and play music and live well.
Well, sounds wonderful. All sounds wonderful. You've mentioned writing books several times throughout our show, so I wish you the best of luck.
Pressure.
And I would like to thank you for your passion and love for the Gayageum and Korean music, and also thank you for promoting Korean music to not only Koreans but to people across the globe. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
감사합니다.
감사합니다.